Hi, my name is Ben Armstrong.
Hi, this is David Cox.
My name is Thomas Maurer.
Hi, I'm Donna Sarkar.
Hi, my name is Lana Montgomery.
Hi, I'm Seth Juarez.
Hi, I'm Aaron Thomas.
I'm Jess Dodson.
Hi, I'm Rocky Heckman.
Hi, I'm Sonia Cuff.
Hi, I'm Troy Hunt.
Hello, this is Wally Mead.
My name is Reed Purvis.
Hi, I'm Lars Klint.
Hi, my name is Alan Birchall.
Hi, I'm Adam Fowler.
Hi, I'm Scott Guthrie, and you're listening to the Need to Know podcast.
All the latest Microsoft Cloud news, as well as industry guest deep dive conversations. It's a Need to Know podcast. All thanks to the CIA Ops patron community. The Need to Know podcast. Catch us on Twitter and Facebook, N2K Podcast, and online at ciaops.podbean.com.
Welcome to the Need to Know podcast. My name is Robert Crane, and you join me for episode 289. Just a quick thanks to those that have reached out to me and said they do enjoy the format. It's always great to hear that. Please keep the feedback coming. It's always good to get that feedback to understand if the podcast is meeting the needs of those that are listening, because I make sure that I want to deliver the best quality and also the best value for the time that you have invested. So as we kick off, don't forget you can always reach out to me via a number of different means. You can go on the Twitters at DirectorCIA and also send me an email, director@CIAOps. So a couple of updates from me here. Firstly, the YouTube channel now has a handle. I've gone and registered a handle. That handle is at DirectorCIA. So the way that you can get to that is youtube.com/@DirectorCIA. You should end up at my YouTube channel here, where a video of this podcast will also be available. Now you'll notice there, if you do have a look, that I have now connected up my merchandise store. So there's a couple of merchandise items in there, t-shirts and so on. Have a look, and hopefully you'll find some value in there that you might think about going and purchasing, but please also let others know all about that. The other thing I'll call out is the option to go and join my shared channel. All right, my team shared channel that allows you to view that in your current Teams environment without having to switch tenants. Again, I've got a blog post there which I'll put in the show notes for you to go and have a look, set that up, send me an email, let me know that you do want to join in, and I will add you to that channel as soon as possible. So again, have a look for Join My Teams Shared Channel, and please join our little community there. Now, on the news front from Microsoft, we've still a bit of a hangover, I suppose, from Ignite 2022. So I've picked out two rather large blog posts to work through here, which I don't think I've mentioned previously. Lots of items in there, so I'll work through those and give you some indications of what I think is important and of value in there. So the first one is called What's New in Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Ignite 2022. All right, so probably the biggest announcement there was around this concept of the metaverse and the inclusion of avatars. So you'll soon be able to present yourself as an avatar in Teams rather than having to turn on the camera. Now, personally, I think this is really good. I really like this option. I don't like presenting myself via video. I'd rather use an avatar. Others can't see the point of it. Others, think it's, I suppose, comical rather than business-like. Very interesting how this will pan out. I think that once it comes in and more people get familiar with it and use it, I think they're going to like it. It's an interesting comment from me around, imagine the amount of time and effort that Microsoft and the programs have spent getting this, the combinations, the ability to customize the avatar to suit exactly what you want, different clothes, different skin colors, all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of work that's gone into that. Is that the best use of the time? Maybe not, but it's also top of mind here, and Microsoft, has to keep up with the trend. So that is available to people who are in what's known as the Technical Adoption Program, the TAP program, and it will be coming to public preview shortly, and then it will go general availability. So at this stage, you won't see it in your own tenant typically, but it will basically be coming down the line. So watch out for that, avatars in Teams. Now, what I also liked here was the collaboration annotations in Teams meetings. So imagine being able to look at a document or a PowerPoint or a website and then freeze it in time and for all people in the meeting to annotate. Now, this is now possible using Microsoft Whiteboard. This has been around for a little while, but it's now been taken to the next level here. So again, have a look at this, the ability to go in and annotate. All the people in the meeting can pause and annotate documents now directly. We've got a cameo role in PowerPoint, which means you can sort of embed your own video into PowerPoint. We've also got the interesting one, another one of these interesting ones here around assigning a seat in Together Mode. So Together Mode is the ability to view attendees, in a virtual seat or a virtual desktop or a virtual lecture environment, and now you can go in and actually select which seat in this Together Mode virtual environment that you want. Again, obviously people are asking for it. I can't sort of understand that myself, but again, another option that is now available to you. Probably something which is of more value is Microsoft Polls. So there's some additional capabilities in polls that you can include in Teams. So we can do things like ranking. We can pop those polls up directly inside the Microsoft team meeting, and then what we can do is get require interaction directly. So I do like that. Now, don't forget there is a Teams Premium SKU coming. We expect this in December. Again, the idea here is it's going to give you more capabilities. So, for example, it's going to give you things like the ability to provide branding and backgrounds at the organizational level and custom Together Mode. So what happens is when you start a meeting, you typically see a blank screen behind that while you choose your audio settings and so on. We can now customize that, or that will be customized with this Teams Premium option. You'll have the ability to do that. We also get the ability to do watermarking, improved encryption, sensitivity labels assigned to meetings, so that's going to be there. Probably the biggest one is this concept of intelligent recap. So you'll get AI-generated tasks, auto-generated chapters, personalized timeline, and also an intelligent transcript search. So some advanced features here. I think everybody would probably take advantage of this, although a lot of people really don't use the capabilities in Teams fully. So sort of understand why Microsoft has made this a premium feature, but hopefully some of the features do trickle down into the standard offerings. We've got live translations for captions. We've also got advanced virtual appointments, all right, which gives us a custom waiting room. I like the concept of a custom waiting room, the ability to customize that with our own logo and so on. We've also got SMS reminders and a mobile browser join. So again, SMS reminder for meetings would be great. Again, this is all Teams Premium still. We also get advanced webinars, which means we've got a wait list in there. That'd be fantastic. I really love that. So I'll have to wait and see that come out with Teams Premium. We get automated reminder emails, a virtual green room, and we can manage what attendees actually see on the screen there. So I think that's a good thing. Now, of course, we do have some updates around rooms and devices. All right, some of these devices are getting pretty smart. Their ability to target people speaking in the room. Also, the ability to have different room aspects. The concept of whiteboards where it can see through, a person standing in front of a real whiteboard displayed on the screen. We've also got this. I found this very interesting. There's a thing here called the Microsoft Presenter Plus. It's a bit like a clicker, like a PowerPoint clicker. Not quite sure again what role this plays, but integrated with Teams. So if you want to have a look at that, I don't know, unless you've got a dedicated boardroom, whether that is of huge value. But again, Microsoft is offering it here. We've got some enhancements around the Brio cameras, always really, really good. We've also got improved integration with the Surface headphones. Microsoft Places is the concept of helping people decide where the best place is to have a meeting, whether it's remote, at the office, on the go. So Microsoft is including that. There's obviously big demand for that in the era of remote work. We've also got a new channel experience in Teams. Now this is very interesting because if you look at most social media feeds, the feed or the most recent post is at the top of the list, where Teams has had the most recent post at the bottom. So Microsoft is now moving to, I suppose, the social media standard and placing the latest conversation at the top of the list there, so you can see what's going on, some additional features in there as well. But that's probably going to be a big change, and I think that's the right thing to do, more in line with what social media people expect from social media platforms out there. We've also got more emojis and more reactions. I don't know if that's such a good thing, but people love emojis, so they can knock themselves out with more reaction emojis. We've also got suggested replies like that, just saving time there quickly, and recommended people when you create a new message. All right, so some other options here. We can delete a chat. So we've got the ability, or the ability shortly, to be able to delete your own personal chat. So an administrator can always delete the common chat. However, an individual can delete their own common chats in the channel, but to do it inside your own personal chat has been restricted, but we can now do that, which is great. We've got scheduled send, so we can schedule a time, much like an email, to determine when to actually send a reply. That generally avoids pinging backwards and forwards throughout the day. And we've also, I like this bit where you can include now in your personal chat a video message. So if you go down on the right hand side, you'll see there's ability to add like a short video clip based on the stream technology, rather than having to type something in. I think that's fantastic. That's a really good adoption and integration option. We've also got the work hours and location, which we can set. We've got integration with loop components. So loop components are these new integrated collaboration capabilities that are built into Word on the web, Whiteboard, Outlook for Windows. Very interesting to have a play with those, see how well they work. I mean, it's a bit early days for this. I think this is beyond most users, most standard users, but I can see the benefit in there. So start using it. You can integrate in with Teams and a few other options there on the web to see what it's like. On the admin side, we've got enhanced security labels and data loss prevention. All right, so that's coming to Teams chat. That's going to help protect that information. And we've got some phone and contact improvements there. I'm not going to go through that. CRM browser pop-outs are now available as well. And we have a detailed call history. What else have we got here? We've got the Teams phone UI updates. Enhanced capabilities. What else we got here? More technical phone stuff. All right, so I've got a shared canvas. We've got card-based loop components. We've got, what else we got here? Some updates for frontline workers, the integration with Viva connections. And I will say that Viva was another really big topic at Ignite. So many people think it's not for SMB. I would suggest that there are components you can integrate and use with SMB. I'd certainly encourage you to do that. Don't just write off Viva as an expensive option for the enterprise. I think it does have validity in SMB, and there are some features, worthwhile features, looking if you do want to integrate it. What else have we got here? We've got some enhanced APIs as well. So I'd encourage you to go in and have a look at that article. I'll include that article in the show notes. It's quite a long and detailed post. And again, that is called What's New in Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Ignite 2022. Now, another super long post here was the announcements for file experiences in Microsoft 365 at Ignite. Now, again, lots of content to get through in this blog, so I'll give you a bit of a run through quickly. We get a different looking, or what they call a reimagined, as they do a OneDrive. So the OneDrive Home has been reimagined. We've got the ability to filter quickly on recent files, a cleaner look. Now, probably the most interesting one is this Project Nucleus. So if you haven't heard of this, this is an offline mode for SharePoint technology. So they're talking about offline mode in this blog post for OneDrive Web. So what it's going to allow you to do is go further than just taking your files offline with the current sync client. You'll be able to take basically the whole web page and any other thing in SharePoint offline. No announcement as to when this will be released, but they are working on it pretty hard, is my understanding, and it looks pretty, if it comes off, if it actually does what they say, could be a bit of a game changer here, I think, because it will allow you effectively to take your whole SharePoint site, your whole Teams, and all that sort of stuff online. Now, according to the post here, it will be available by the second half of calendar year 2023. So next year, Project Nucleus, watch out for it. Improved, enhanced, beefed up sync client, and it's going to include a hell of a lot more that can be brought down and used offline. Now we have enhanced views for sharing with people and files. That's really handy to see who information is shared with. Again, that's that change in look and feel for OneDrive for business. We've got the ability to have, the improved capability where we're integrating things like Stream and Outlook, OneNote and all that, the web-based things working much better with this environment. We've also got the ability now, which I think is pretty handy, to favorite files. So if you've got files you work on regularly, you can go in and favorite them. We've also got the OneDrive app in Microsoft Teams. Now, we had something called Files before in Teams, but now we've got this capability to actually have the OneDrive app dedicated inside Teams. We've also got some enhancements for Mac. We've also got some enhancements for the OneDrive Sync Health Dashboard for Administrator. We've got integration here with better integration with File Explorer. So rather than having to worry about your sync in the bottom right-hand corner there, we've also got the ability to look at that in our Windows 11 File Explorer. So go in and have a look at that. And there's a video there, a number of sessions you can go in and spend some time with. So again, encourage you to go in and have a look at that longish blog post on the file enhancements in Microsoft 365. Now, the last one I've got here for you is a Windows 11 update, so making the everyday easier with new experiences available in Windows 11. Now, lots and lots of new stuff. Now, you do have to have 22H2 on your system. I've updated my systems finally to all of these. Now, probably, I think the biggest thing that most people have been waiting for has been the ability to have multiple tabs in File Explorer. So again, I've got one. If you're watching on the video here, we can see that we can drive into multiple locations here using our File Explorer. So if you do have Windows 11 22H2 there, go in and see if you've got the tabs capability in your File Explorer. You should have that. Again, have a look at this blog post here. Lots of little enhancements and improvements in the latest version of Windows. Make sure you do go down and update that if you do have your system. I haven't had any issues with it at any stage on any machine, but it has taken a little while, obviously, to install and update. So be prepared for that. It may reboot a couple of times as well, since it is a rather major update to the operating system. So again, major update I think is going to be the tabbed option inside File Explorer. Now, for this episode, I wanted to talk about conditional access. But before I do, there is a blog post, an update here that I think is really worthwhile to have a look at. So what conditional access has just added is this capability to control applications using conditional access. So generally we've been able to control our users, their logins from devices, but we can now do that with applications that are in our Azure AD. So think about a third-party application, maybe a backup. If that is running, we want to probably control that with conditional access to prevent it, logging in from a country of unknown origin or whatever. So we have these capabilities now built into our conditional access, which is absolutely fantastic. So we've now got conditional access control over our users, but also the applications that live in Azure AD. Now, speaking of conditional access, let me spend a few minutes just talking about that. So conditional access is something that is evaluated after successful login, right? So you put in your login email address, you then put in a password, you go through MFA, and then conditional access is evaluated. So conditional access cannot be used to prevent, denial of service or something like that. It is based on a successful login of the user before it is activated. Now, conditional access is a feature of Azure AD P1, so you need at least Azure AD P1 to get conditional access. Now, luckily, it is included in Microsoft 365 Business Premium, so we do have conditional access inside our Business Premium, which is fantastic. Now, there are various ways to get to conditional access. I personally like to go through the Azure portal. So I go into the Azure portal, I can do a search for conditional access policies. You'll see there that it now pops up. Now, conditional access is basically an evaluation, a way to evaluate a login based on a number of standard capabilities. So who's the user, what device are they on, where are they logging in from, and what applications do they want to go and get access to. So this is going to be evaluated by a policy that you set up prior to the users actually getting access. And the idea is that you do that, and what happens is that then is the last component or the next component that's evaluated after the MFA. Now, typically we use this to prevent bad actors getting in from devices that aren't in Azure AD, from countries that we aren't based in, and also forcing or making sure that users complete MFA to get access to the data. We also use it to disable things like a basic authentication as well. All right. So the idea here is that the first thing to do is go and create a policy. But if you have a look now, if you have a look in your conditional access area, you'll see that we now have this new policy from template, which is in preview. So you'll see here we've got the ability to go in and select from a template. We can select identities and devices. Now, so let's go in and just select identities for users. And you'll see here that I've got a range of recommended templates here. So for example, require multi-factor authentication for admins, securing security info registration, block legacy authentication, require multi-factor for risky users. So we can just select that template, and that will then basically go in and set that all up for us without having to go in and do that actually manually, which is a really, really good thing. I think it's just going to make life much easier. Remember, we can do that for our devices as well. All right, so you can see that we've got plenty of things in there. We get this, obviously, again, I'm in the Azure portal looking at that. Now, if you do want to create a new policy, you can do that without the template. You just select the option for new policy. You go in here, and firstly, you would give the policy a name. Now, I would suggest to you that even before you think about doing conditional access, the first thing you need to make sure you have is what we call a break glass account. So a break glass account is something that is not subject to any of these policies. Now, conditional access is extremely powerful and is evaluated constantly, right? So if any time the policy is not adhered to, access will be denied. So if you have all your users inside, a conditional access policy, and for some reason you make a mistake or some condition isn't met, then you could potentially lock yourself out or lock those users out of the environment. So my advice to you is the first thing you should do is make sure that you have or use an account that is excluded from all of these policies. So in case of emergency, you can get in there and basically still have access to Intune to make any changes to the policy. But we give the policy a name, right, a descriptive name, and then we determine the workload. So does this policy apply to users and groups or to these workload identities? So this is this new application which is currently in preview. So you can apply conditional access to our applications here. Now you can choose who to include, so you can include all users if we're looking at users and groups, say, or selected users. Now you'll note that there's also an exclude option, so please go in there and exclude at least one user as a break glass and backup just in case. Now once you've targeted the users or workloads that you want, the next thing to do is select what applications, cloud applications, that this will apply to. So typically what we do is we go in and we may select all cloud apps, but we also can add a filter and filter the applications that we want, and we can also go in and select particular apps. We can also go in here and exclude applications that are exempt. So very much like a firewall concept. So which users to include and exclude, which applications to include and exclude basically as well. Then we need to determine what the conditions are going to be tested. So we've got user risk, sign-in risk, which device platform. So we can target our policy here to Android, iOS, and so on. We can also target locations. Now this is what we'll be using if you want to say prevent users from logging in out from only within a country that you've nominated. So you would go in and create that list in there. So those locations there. Now you can define whitelisted IP addresses, countries, all that sort of stuff, and use those going forward in this policy. We can also then target our client app. So that refers to the capability. All right, so where's the client going to be accessing, or what client's going to be accessing the data? Is it going to be a browser, desktop, Exchange, and so on? So we can target that. And we can also filter for devices. So we can go in and create a filter and apply this only to certain devices. So maybe you want conditional access to apply to everybody, except perhaps if it's an Android device for some reason. All right, so we can do all that with our actions. Now, the teeth of this is around the access control, which is the grant option here. This is where we can go in and grant or block access. All right, so we've got those two options there. Now, if we grant access, we can add the additional capabilities of requiring multi-factor authentication. We can also now determine or require the authentication strength, for example. Now in here, what that means is we can enforce the requirement for, say, passwordless MFA, not just normal MFA with the rolling numbers. We can enforce the capability to have passwordless. You'll see here that we've also got the capability to require approved client apps to have an app protection policy in place from places like Intune, and also require a password change in there. So we can require just one of these controls to grant access, or we can require all of them, or we can select which ones that we want in there. So extremely powerful in there to allow people to access. Last option we've got here when we create our policy is something called session. All right, so we can enforce, app restrictions. We can also use conditional access app control. So if you've got something like Defender for Cloud Apps, we can use that in here as well. We can have persistent browser sessions, and so on. So lots and lots of options in here. But remember that conditional access is evaluated constantly now. So again, anytime a device, user, or condition is outside one of these policies, that could obviously remove the ability to allow users access to the environment. Now, once you've got all your policies set up, the idea would be is then you can go in and enable the policy. There is a report only option. Now, again, very good option if you just want to try things out and see what the results may be before enforcing it. So again, number one best practice is make sure you have a break glass account to ensure you don't lock yourself out, and then perhaps look at just setting the policy here to be report only initially, which is a good idea. Now, once you've done that and you've set up your policy, if you come back to the home page for conditional access, you'll find that there's a what if button. Now, that what if button allows you to evaluate the impact of a conditional access policy on a number of conditions. So the conditions can be the user, they can be the application, they can be an IP address, and so on. So the idea here is you create your conditional access policy, and then you can use this what if analysis if you want to go in and evaluate the impact that will have for you. So more options in the conditional access area are the ability to create named locations. So these would be your whitelisted corporate IPs for the office or so on. We can also enforce terms of use. We've got VPN connectivity. We've also got the ability to go in and look at the sign-in logs. So the sign-in logs here are going to show you, conditions when users or applications, principals sign in. Now, if we click on any of these, you'll see across the top. So when you look at the detail of a sign-in, you'll notice across the top, you have basic info, location, device info, authentication details, but also conditional access. So what that will tell you is when the login occurs, what rules from conditional access were impacted or evaluated, or their outcome there. So don't forget that once you put conditional access in place, you can view its results on each individual sign-in if you want to basically go and do that. So if you haven't looked at conditional access, remember, it's part of Microsoft 365 Business Premium, and it is also part of Azure ADP 1 if you don't happen to actually have that. We've now got templates that allow you to create conditional access policies quickly and easier. easier. So take advantage of those as well. Make sure that you do have a break glass account that is not subject to those policies so that you don't go in and lock yourself out. It's very easy to do that. So again, take care when you are setting that and applying it to a large group of users. Okay, and also put the policies into report mode and then evaluate them with the what if tool as well to get a better feel of the impact that it would have, around your users and your environment. Okay, so plenty of options there if you haven't looked at that. Microsoft has some documentation here which I'll put in the show notes. So it is called, just let me post it in here so I can remember it. So the idea here is Microsoft gives us some best practices around plan a conditional access deployment. So you can go in there and have a look at, what Microsoft's recommended. There's 4 or 5 policies that it will recommend that you have. Things like requiring administrators to have MFA to do anything that they need to on the admin side. We also need to have, they also recommend, having devices be compliant. We also require app protection policies. So all of those best practices are listed in this document, which I'll make sure I put in the show notes for you. All right, so with that, hopefully you've got a bit of a feel of conditional access. Hopefully you're up to date with the news and details from Microsoft Ignite. We don't expect a huge amount of announcements moving towards the end of the year here, but obviously I'll bring you those if they do arise. Remember that you can always reach out to me via my Twitter handle @DirectorCIA. You can also send me an email, director@ciaops.com. Really appreciate you taking the time to listen. Don't forget to watch the YouTube replay of this and also look at the new merch store that I've got there. And again, all of these sort of details are broadcast regularly in my Patreon community, www.ciaopspatron.com. That's an area where you can come and join with people focused on learning more and sharing more from the Microsoft Cloud. But with that, I think I'm going to call it quits on this episode of the Need to Know podcast.
You have been listening to the Need to Know podcast from CIA Ops. For training on using technologies like SharePoint Online or Microsoft 365, visit www.ciaopsacademy.com. By purchasing from the selections available, you'll be directly supporting this podcast. To provide feedback on this episode, visit www.ciaops.com/contact.